Welcome to No Quit, the podcast where real business isn't filtered. I'm Jeff Lesher, founder of Fleur de Lis Law and Title. I've built an 8-figure company, but not without setbacks, burnouts, and moments that nearly broke me. This podcast is where I tell the truth about what it really takes to grow something that lasts. The wins, the losses, and the grit in between. If you're in it for more than just the highlight reel, you're in the right place. The stories shared on this podcast are based on real experiences, but details have been changed or generalized to protect client confidentiality. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship. All right, good morning, everybody. Jeff Lesher here with the No Quit podcast. Today, our guest is Dion Grossnickle. That is the way we pronounce it, right?
Yep,
I just want to make sure. Owner and operator of North Cypress Fitness here in Hammond, and also location in Ponchatoula. Where else do y'all?
That's it. Just those
two right now. Yeah. Obviously, a huge fan. It's been a big part of my life and helping me kind of sort of find some resurgence and change kind of how I was living day to day. So yeah, welcome, man. Good to have you on.
Well,
yeah.
I'm excited. Well, thanks for being a member with us. We
appreciate
appreciate
man. Well,
that.
it really has been life changing for me, and I'm not just saying it to over exaggerate for the podcast. Like, I took a 20-year hiatus from being healthy at all.
Right.
I was a college soccer player. I mean, granted, it was just one season. It snowed in Nebraska. I came home. That was it for me. But 3-sport athlete in high school, and I've always been a guy that I thought of as being fit.
Right.
And I law school started the downturn, and 20 years later, I find myself. I mean, I was closer. I tell my wife, I was closer to 300 pounds than I was 200, and I was 184 when we got married. But regardless of that, we'll get into some of that in a little bit. Give me the kind of the 60-second background on Dion.
Well, I grew up in Metairie, moved to Southeastern after I graduated from Archbishop Rummel.
Okay.
And so I was at Southeastern for 6 years.
Yeah.
So I had a 4-year degree in 6 years. You can imagine the fun I had back
then.
Yeah. After I graduated, I moved away to St. Tammany Parish and started running health clubs there for 15 years.
Really? Which ones?
That was Crossgates.
Okay.
And it's called Crossgates Family Fitness, which is a pretty big facility now. They have multiple locations. They just bought 2 more facilities, I believe, just recently.
Had you, were you just big into fitness before when you got started, or?
I actually, I wasn't thinking fitness at all.
Yeah.
I graduated from school. I worked at the Superdome and in marketing, doing it was an internship realistically. And then my goal was to work in an arenas or sports teams. And it just so happened that an owner of the club out in Slidell called me and said, "Hey, I'd like to do an interview." And I started my journey in the fitness world. 31 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, y'all have been greatly successful. I mean, that place is, is there an amenity y'all don't have? I mean, I know, and then y'all are about to add like a cold plunge and stuff.
Yeah.
Too,
we are constantly trying to improve our facility.
Yeah.
That's one of our mottos is you never stand still. You always keep moving to bring new things for our members. One of the things that I've always wanted to do since I came to Hammond is add a competitive swim pool for kids to be able to have competitive swim teams again.
Mm-hmm.
That was really big years ago before I was in Hammond, and I think it's time that the kids have a facilities to where they can have competitive swim teams. So we're building a competitive pool, a 25-yard pool.
Really?
And then at the end of the year of 2026, we're going to start building our cold plunge and hot tubs and things. So our aquatic stack's going to look much different than it does today.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like such a huge deal now. Everybody's, doing the hot cold therapy, the sauna, the cold plunge, and I'm using the 24-hour lower key over in Ponchatoula, but I mean, it's been huge for me. We were talking kind of before the podcast. I mean, it's only about 3 or 4 blocks from my house, and so it makes it really easy to just sort of jog there. Of course, I started with walking there, and jog back, and now I take a little bit longer route, and I've gotten to the point where I can jog like 3 miles to get there. But even there, y'all, I've only been, I think, going less than a year, and y'all have changed things out and updated things even there.
A few things.
And look, it's a huge deal because I know it's easy to probably, concentrate on the big gym, but I'll even notice that sometimes y'all change the pads out as they're wearing out on a machine. And it's just nice because y'all are taking care of it. And it makes it, nice to keep going there and using it. And as much as I want to get to the big gym, it's just the convenience at 4:30 in the morning for me to
no doubt
to
and
get
that's
to that
one of
one.
the luxuries of having that little small gym there, and it's
Yeah.
really a neat club. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if the members at the big facility are North Cypress would have the luxuries of having some of the equipment at Cypress Fitness 24/7, as they'd be pretty excited because it's better equipment. You know,
Yeah.
we went and put Italian techno gym equipment in the entire facility.
I mean, it's nice. Yeah.
So it's a neat little
I'm
place. We
loving
wish
it.
we had more space, but it is what it is. You know, we lease that space.
So let's get a few more of the personal stuff out of the way. Married, kids. I mean,
I am. Yep. I'm married. Incredible wife. Been married now just recently. We just celebrated our 20-year anniversary.
Really? Where'd y'all
last
meet?
week. At a health club where we work, believe it or not. She worked there, I worked there, and so we've been together for a long time.
20
We have
years.
2 kids, a 16 and 15-year-old now, Evan and Landon. So
Yeah.
my wife's name's Katrina.
yeah. Well, wow, man. I we're about to turn 25, I think, next year. I mean, how old are you?
I'll be 53
Yeah,
next
so
week.
still, fairly young. I mean, you
Yeah.
got married at 29, 30.
Somewhere, I don't even know. So
Yeah.
whatever that, do the math in your head. I have no idea. So it's
Yeah. Well, my wife, when you said Rummel, she was a member of the '98 homecoming court for Rummel. She's a Chappelle girl, so
Yeah.
we met over here at Southeastern. But we became members at North Cypress, like at the old gym on North Cypress.
Yeah.
We actually lived in an apartment when we first got married, like kind of catty corner to the gym over there, which is now the Children's Discovery
Wow.
Museum. But yeah, and then of course, like I said, law school, I tailed off and kind of got away with it. But glad to be back now. One of the things that we kind of wanted to talk about, or I wanted to talk about and bring out in this podcast, I mentioned this earlier too, is I want, having gone through sort of a tough time in my life in the last couple of years, both personally and business wise, I kind of wanted to talk about that with guys that were successful, that have a lot of things going on in their life, to kind of maybe help other people realize not just that, hey, we all go through it, but maybe kind of dig into it deeper a little bit and try to figure out, what worked for you in trying to get through some of that time. And it can be, a dark time, or maybe some people talk about going through a race. Could be something that's not necessarily dark, but what's something that you've gone through and
Yeah, I mean, first, that word successful, I don't know how you define that, because every morning I
not
wake
out
up,
of business is one
oh
good.
my gosh, well, just everything,
Yeah.
I think there's not a day that I wake up that I don't measure my success and think of my failures.
Yeah.
And that's the
course.
key. So I have not achieved success yet in my life, and I don't think defining success by a business would be a thing that I want in my life.
Yeah.
I want to be successful in other things.
Sure.
I want to be successful, of course, first and foremost for my family, but also the community. And I want to do things that I can do if I'm blessed to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's the measurement of success that most business owners forget about, because they're always looking at the bottom line.
True.
They're paying the bills and they're just trying to achieve that number. And then once they get to a point, they say, well, I'm successful, but are they truly successful?
I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think at the same time, and this has got to be true of you. I mean, y'all employ how many people?
Come summer, we'll be 215, somewhere around
215 people, but that's 215 people whose lives count on every decision you're making with that business to continue to grow it and continue to have people come there and want to continue to come there and add amenities. And I guess so. Sometimes it's a little bit of that. It's not just, I guess, the dollars in terms of revenue, but I mean, you want to call it that or not, to have a business that employs 215 people.
Right.
I mean, that's success, man.
Well, they're the successful ones.
Yeah.
The team members are the ones that I look at and how I can measure the success of our business
Yeah.
based on the longevity that they have, the pride that they have in the facilities or the company. The things that they do, the smiles that they have,
Yeah.
and also those ones that come in, they work for us for 2 or 3 years, and they learn things to go on to their next journey in life at another work. That's what I enjoy the most. Seeing growth of employees.
That is a hard part about being a business owner, though, don't you think? It's like I try to tell my people that sometimes, like, look, when we have like yearly evals, we kind of like, what do you want out of life? Like, you might be 23 years old and working here, and there's a big part of me that doesn't want to lose you and wants you to grow you within the company. But there's also another side too, that like, I know you didn't wake up as a kid and say, hey, I can't wait to work for a title company,
I know.
a law firm, whatever. So how do you, deal with that? Do you encourage them to grow?
I don't know if I personally encourage them, because it hurts my heart when I have someone that does so much for our company, and then one day walks in my office and say, "Hey, it's time."
Mm-hmm.
And in the back of my head, I knew that there would be a time for some of these team members to move on, because the truth be told, we only have so many positions that are career positions at
Yeah.
the health club. So to think that we're going to have a career person that started right out of college to grow, well, we have to have a position for them to grow into.
Yeah.
So at that point, if those positions are filled with very successful individuals like we have right now, we do know that we're going to have some people that are going to grow into other industries or other health clubs, or just being an incredible parent, or
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of those things are what I like to see. And I think me being in this industry has allowed me to, over the years, 31 years is a long time to be in this industry. I don't know at what point I finally realized that, wait a second, we're kind of a stepping stone as an employer to life.
Yeah.
And I, when I woke up finally one day and realized that, then it gave me a little bit different insight on how that looks. So we're much different, from a title company. And you filled with career positions, and we're not.
Yeah.
Of those 215 team members, a vast majority of them are college students or some high school students. Especially summertime lifeguards and summer camp and front desk and childcare. Those are all younger team members that I know that our goal should be to help them with their next step in their work environment.
Yeah.
In their work world.
Well, I think that's a big plus to know that going in, because it's got to be nice to see those kids grow on to bigger things. And now you've got contacts in various walks of life. But so tell me a little bit too about how you came back into Hammond. I mean, you said you came here for college, moved off, I guess, to run the other health club in St. Tammany.
Yeah. That I think that when you reached out to me about maybe coming on with your podcast, you wanted to know some struggles, and boy, we can start how I came back to Hammond, and I'll say that was probably one of the most difficult kind of times of my life. I was managing this large facility in Slidell. We had 2 locations, and I was their general manager, and the owner and I were really close, and one of my best friends. And one day we had lunch, and at the same time of having lunch, my wife was at home with a 4-month-old and a 1-year-old, or a little over 1 year old. So I'm thinking we're doing great. I'm moving in a great direction, and once that lunch was over, I didn't have a job.
Really?
We made a decision at that lunch, an unexpected decision, to say, hey, it's time to do something else. And the goal at that point was to go find another facility to where I would have some small ownership in with the owner of that facility.
Yeah.
And I was making pretty good money.
Wow.
And I went from making pretty good money to zero in a matter of 2 minutes,
with a 1-year-old and a 4-month-old
at home.
Good grief.
And I was kind of excited, with that decision. And I got in my car, and I don't want to say any curse words that came through my head, but what the heck was I thinking? And I think the most difficult thing was calling my wife and telling her what just happened.
So this is a decision you kind of came to with.
Well, the owner of that club, he was pretty good at making us
feel like you were a part of the decision.
and I walked away, and I was like, did I make the decision, or did he? And it almost felt like, did I get fired, or did I make this decision? But at the end of the day, the next day or two, I was traveling, looking for new facilities, and with him, so it felt like it was the right thing. And then one day, the one of the owners of North Cypress called and said, hey, Dion, I heard that you guys are possibly looking for something to invest in. And I knew of North Cypress without going into too much. I just knew of North Cypress over the years because they just opened up a facility, or they expanded to the existing facility on South Magnolia, which is the big facility. At that time, it was only like 22,000 square feet. And he was having some struggles. So, and I was looking at places in different states. We were about to pick up my whole brand new family and move, and I visited North Cypress, and it had bones. it had potential, but the numbers were really bad. I mean,
Really?
it was in a really bad place. But my mind always came back to it. I would be in a different state thinking about, man, this would be a great place to build a new facility. And in the back of my head, I was thinking, well, what about Hammond? You know, what about that club that was struggling? And so I sat down with the owner of the club that I worked at, and I said, look, I'm going to try to do this on my own. You know, I'm going to go to this facility in Hammond, and I'm going to try to work a deal to where I'll invest into that facility, and I'm not going to be with you anymore. And that's kind of how it happened.
How did your wife take that? I mean, how did you even approach that topic? Hey, hon.
You know, I have the most wonderful wife. You know, if I told her today, hey, we're getting out of North Cypress Fitness and we're going to go move to some small island, she was like, come on, let's do it.
Really?
Yeah. So
awesome.
You know, she's so supporting. But she's at that time she was still working at the facility in Slidell.
Really?
You know, she was one of the biggest personal trainers. I mean, you know, so she was doing really well, but her times were less and less because
the kids,
she had these two children, and at that time she was thinking, you know, well, I like this whole job thing, but I really love being a mom. You know, so I think that her hours were shrinking more into being a mom.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time that all happened, about a month into this, we found out that our older child had autism, and so here I am without a job, making no money.
That's
I
a
had
lot.
a little money sitting aside. We just got a diagnosis of our 1.5-year-old having autism, and the doctor's saying this is going to be the most expensive thing we've ever encountered in our life. And I'm thinking, well, how am I going to do this? But then that's when I made the deal with North Cypress to invest with the two owners then, and it started growing. You know?
But that's pretty interesting, though, just in general. Like, you've got all that going on, and you're thinking, I'm going to go out and find a gym to invest in. I mean, it just seems, it's extremely entrepreneurial, but and I can see the excitement around it too, but so few people I've ever run across are handling those sort of life changes with, all right, well, now's the time I'm going to do something big.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I realized the gravity of what I was doing at the moment. I was just doing it just to make it work. You know, there were so many things that were happening. It was in 2011 when all of this happened in the beginning. 2011, there was a lot of stuff happening in our world. You know, that housing crash was just moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, while it just had 2 years of a negative direction. Hammond was really blessed because it was still running a little bit on Hurricane Katrina money.
I remember.
You know, so they kind of escaped the major housing crash that everyone else saw. But the positive growth I saw, okay, this is the time to invest, and that's why Hammond looks so attractive to me, because while Hammond was moving in the right direction, they weren't moving from such a deep hole as some of these other places. So I knew that the potential for this North Cypress Fitness could have been positive. I didn't know how big it would get. It actually took me by surprise, because we started in 2011. I think we had 773 or memberships, somewhere around there. That doesn't pay the bills. You know, I mean, this club was losing money every month.
Wow.
It was scary. I mean, saying, okay, well, we're not making enough money to even pay to keep the lights on. You know, so it seemed, and I started putting a little money into it from marketing and doing the things, but all it needed was the proper systems. You know, any business, if you have the proper systems in place, potential is endless. Yeah, and I had those systems that I've either created on my own or learned from the owner of the facility I worked at for 15 years.
So you were pretty faithful in knowing that they've worked somewhere else. I can implement them here, and they're going to.
Oh, yeah, I was so blessed for working for the company I worked for 15 years. I mean, the owner of that facility, his name's Larry Welch. He just had it together.
Really?
You know, he really knew how to do things. And I just knew taking those systems and plugging them into this facility, we would see positive growth. I didn't know how fast it would happen, and that took me by surprise. So we had a little 23,000 square foot facility. and with 737 or 773 memberships. And it grew to about 10,000 members in about 2 years.
I had no idea it was that many people,
Yeah,
man.
so it was about 9,700 members in 2 years, and then it forced us to grow.
Yeah.
And we had to. We didn't. Our walls were too small. The parking lot was too few spots. The group exercise. I remember group exercise classes to where people were standing outside to take the class.
Do it. Wow.
And like standing outside the doors to take the class. So our original goal was, okay, we're going to expand and make a bigger group exercise studio, and that turned into another 35,000 square foot building. So we're
bigger than the original.
Yeah, and we went out and took a big old hefty loan for that, and I think you were part of that.
Yeah,
and that was scary. I mean,
I bet,
the debt load on a health club to be where it was crazy. But we were like, okay, we got to do something, because otherwise we're going to cave in because we grew too fast. And that was scary in itself.
Is y'all's business cyclical? And I mean, I know everybody's got their New Year's resolutions, and maybe they kind of have a little bit of a boom in December or January.
Right.
But are there other cycles that you've picked out and are aware of, and you plan around, I guess? And
well, that was part of my system approach. So most gyms, unfortunately, they think that they have a January, and then the rest of the year just follows a January, and that kind of is true to a degree for most gyms. But the goal was to change this little gym into a family fitness center. Gyms can only do so much. Gyms are only going to be able to do so much for the community. But to have a center that allowed families to come together,
the pool, the cabana,
summer camps, and having a larger child care, and have kids fitness classes, and the little splash pad and splash pool, all that stuff had to be added to be able to grow this center. See, years ago, we all remember the country clubs. Yeah. And they're still around. They just have a very difficult time because they're competing with like the North Cypress Fitness or or even Spoga, here in the area, which is an incredible facility, or Franco's, or
I mean, they're so proud of those things too. I never grew up a country club kid, but I've looked into a few people that go, and it's like a $25,000 or $45,000 fee to like become a member.
Yeah, it was more affordable back in the day. Yeah. But it was only really centered around a certain percentage of population.
It's eating, drinking, and golf, basically.
But also, you had to have money. I mean, you weren't a middle class family
taking part in that.
Yeah, it was kind of like it was set in a way to where it didn't allow. But then you started having like a Franco's and Mandeville and a Crossgates and Slidell, and now in North Cypress and Hammond, starting to open the doors, and these families were able to have a country club atmosphere for the entire family. So I knew we had to go in that direction in Hammond, because Hammond is just perfect spot for that. There's not a lot of competitiveness to where you have people trying to figure out, where do I spend my discretionary income? So that was the goal. But we still had hurdles. I mean, we had a huge debt load, and a lot of nights that I didn't sleep.
I was about to say, so up until that comment right there, it almost seems like you took such an optimistic approach about it. Like, it seems like you really just dug in and chipped away at a problem with systems and looking at the areas that needed attention, as opposed to such a, some people that we've had on the podcast, it's more of an emotional thing, and they've almost got to get over that mental, emotional hurdle, right? And then they can go about their business. But you really just sort of took a very systematic approach, it sounds like, and just, hey, this is business, I'm going to handle up on it. And is that sort of like the...
I guess you could say that. It's I believed in the systems.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, and I'm not one of these ones that believe if you build it, they will come. You have to have the right systems with the right people implementing the systems. And through the years, you can imagine the amount of team members that
the
come
turnover
through our doors. So that's tough too, because you have young team members, and they're there for a couple years,
and they know they're only there for a few years. So it's like they're not always that in, I guess.
Yeah. So how do you keep those systems alive, or grow them, or make them better over the years? So then once we're capable, once had a little money, I don't want to say profitable, because we weren't. But you had enough money to pay the next person that you can keep longer, then you did that. And then those managers stuck, and those managers helped us grow. And this is when we started to really grow, was really a self-reflection moment for me. If you asked any team member that has been around me, say 10 years ago back, for the first 20 years of me being in the industry, I'm sad to admit, I was a micromanager and I was horrible at it. I wasn't good. I wasn't a good manager. I wasn't a good owner. I did everything wrong when it came to managing people, until I realized that I have to fill these spots with people that are better at their job than I can ever be.
That's a hard thing to do. Do you find? I mean, it's easy in the sense of like, once you know that your business is going to grow and be successful because of the people you bring in. But I think a lot of guys that I have talked to in every walk of life of business, some of them seem to have a real problem not being the smartest guy in the room. Sometimes it's like an ego thing, and I know it holds them back, and they know it holds them back. But I guess the question I was going to ask is like, you kind of already said that, you reached the point where you realized that was where you needed to be. But like, how do you go and really find that person? Like, is there anything specific you're doing in an interview or the selection process that kind of digs out those diamonds?
Right now, the people that are running our company, it's not me, the people that are running our company started at a different position in our company. So they bought in 100%.
They've worked their way up in it.
Yeah, and we've had some that have come in and we've hired for specific positions. Like, we have an incredible business office that are running the show financially for us. And of course, we've hired a few of those and plugged them in. But of course, they're a lot more intelligent than I am when it comes to those things. My club manager is better at it than I ever was.
Yeah.
My group exercise director, oh my gosh. I mean, everybody knows our group exercise director. And there's nothing that I could even do to even come close to the things that she does and how successful she is.
Did you realize that though when you saw and met these people for the first time, or is it like the job history? Because just as for instance here, it's hard for me, and maybe it's just an inadequacy or chink in the armor there, but I see that my partner here is better at the nuts and bolts of abstract and examination of title than I ever was. And I used to think I was one of the best, but I sort of like lucked into it in a way, right? Like, I think there's a lot of people, and sometimes me, it's like, it's almost hard to admit when you're not, better than, or as good as someone. So it like holds you back from bringing that person in. I don't know how to explain it necessarily, I guess. And it's that plus, sometimes when you've been wronged by someone else too, that you put your eggs in their basket, it's like, that also makes you slow to trust them too. So
that I can understand that too. I don't know when I turned that mindset off and turned a new mindset on. I can't really put a number or a date on that, but it's I'm not the smartest person in our room at all. They're just better at things than I am, and I've just learned to embrace that and let them be successful, and that's across the board. And I wish I could name all of them. I know I just named a few of them because they're just so good at the things that they do. And what happened at that point, then they started to take ownership of our company in a way that I would have never dreamed they would have, and take pride. We live by a philosophy. I hope that all of my team members live by a philosophy. I call them my 3 Ps. And they have to have passion, purpose, and pride in everything that they do in life, outside of work or inside of work. And they all do, because they're the ones running their ship.
And they have it when you're not there watching them, I guess. Like, to me, that's like the big like key, because you can't be everywhere at all times. So, if they're doing that stuff in front of you, it's one thing. But if you've got a dozen of those people watching those things and having those 3 Ps when you're not standing right next to them,
right?
Like, it's golden.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I mean, it's we're in a good place, and we're blessed. My business partner Rick and I are blessed that we can step away from the company now and know that it's being run.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you I'll take weeks off, but if I wanted to call him today, my manager today, and say, hey, I'm taking off till January 1st, we're good.
Wow.
He's got it. I think he would actually enjoy that.
Man, have you ever taken that kind of time away there?
No, I just
I bet not.
can't. I don't think I have it in me to do it.
Yeah.
But I know I can. just recently, I think I took a 2.5 week long vacation with my family, and that was the first time we've taken an extended trip. We just got in a car and drove all the way to Washington D.C.
Really?
And I was I told myself, I'm going to call the club very few times, but usually in the years past they would call me for problems. I don't think I had one call from the club.
Sidetracking here a bit, but didn't you have something interesting happen like outside your Airbnb or something like that? Did I read about that on Facebook?
Oh my gosh, I share some stories, don't I? Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah,
I was
what
in
happened?
Washington D.C. Yeah, it's gunshots and craziness. It was so we find, whenever we find a place like an Airbnb, I do like.
I'm only
everybody.
laughing because my wife would be like, "Good choice.
Oh
Way to
my
pick."
gosh. Well, my wife said the same thing. So I pick all the places to stay,
Yeah.
and I found this place in Washington D.C. And of course, like everyone, I think everyone does, they do the Google Earth images, and you drive down the street, you see the business, and it was a spectacular looking area. I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't know the area. I'd be lying if I told you what part of Washington it was, but this building was beautiful. It was really cool. It was inexpensive. That should have been the alarming thing, but I'm cheap, so I wanted to get an inexpensive place. But it still looked great. And I don't want to go too deep into it, but it was the worst choice.
Did you have to leave in the middle of the night kind of bad?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's really bad.
Like,
yeah.
So
Brave the gunfire to get away from it.
It was yeah. I mean, it was all of the above. It was.
What would the wife and kids say? Did they like?
Oh, the kids didn't know what was going on, but my wife, she after we stayed there for 2 nights, and the first night it was bad, but then the second night was like a fraudy night, and it was really bad.
So I'm thinking this whole time it was like a one-off event, but this is like going on every night.
It was just 2 nights,
Oh,
and then we
Lord.
moved out, and then we went to another place. I found another place, so we had to pay for that place, and then we found another place on the other side of Washington D.C. And there was some stories there too.
Yeah.
It was fun.
One other thing I saw recently, I say recently, I lose track of time. I guess maybe it's been a year, but your son got some notoriety on. He went viral for a bit there dancing on at school, huh?
Yeah,
With the
that
teacher or
kid,
something.
He's a ham. That's Evan. That's our
Yeah.
child with autism, and he I think everybody knows Evan.
Yeah.
We go anywhere in town, and you said people know business owners, and no, they know Evan.
Yeah.
And if they don't know Evan, they're going to know Evan before we leave the restaurant. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Social media these days is just it's just crazy. You can have one video out there and it's just
he was
everywhere
like,
all of a sudden.
he was like a superstar for that.
Yeah, I bet.
Time. And
I bet.
we go.
So he's known, I'm sure, by everybody at school now.
We were. If I'm not mistaken, I think we were in Biloxi at Margaritaville, and people stopped to talk to him.
Oh, wow.
Is that the kid from the Shake It Off video? And,
Holy crap.
they all knew him.
That's awesome,
crazy.
man. Yeah,
So-
that's
No, in fact, we were in Virginia going on a trip, and we stopped at this little breakfast place, and we were sitting, and everybody sits on the same table at this
Yeah.
breakfast place, and somebody there saw him, and
Good
they
Lord.
mentioned it. It was like, that's the kid on that Shake It Off video.
that
the
is
Taylor Swift
insane,
video.
man. Yeah,
It was
at
really-
a viral moment.
Yeah, that was fun. He's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. Well, any other, I don't want to say like tips and tricks, but like, if there's something you could, point to as something advice that you would give others, like when you've gone through these tough times in business or family life or whatever it be, like, others that I've had on here, like they find your time, go run, meditate almost, find your place. Is anything you would advise people on or that have helped you?
I wish I had hobbies. Whenever our son Evan doesn't really give us enough time to allow for hobbies.
Yeah.
He needs to have our attention at all hours when he's awake. And so that was one of the hardest things, I think, is when he was diagnosed, we didn't know anything about autism.
What that was gonna be like, yeah.
No, and we definitely didn't know that our world would change in such a way to where we kind of became prisoners to it, and we still are, to where we can't get babysitters to say, hey, we're going out of town
Sure.
as a husband and wife. And we haven't been on a trip together, my wife and I, since prior to children.
Wow.
Because there's no one to really watch Evan
Yeah.
for any extended period of time. And if there were, I don't know if my wife and I would
Feel comfortable with it,
right.
especially now after this much time. Yeah.
And he's bigger, and he takes more energy and effort, and so that's been a struggle, for our lives. But so I don't have the means that some have to say, hey, when you're stressed out as a business owner, what do you do?
Yeah.
I guess the thing that we do is we just do things as a family. and to get away from
Yeah.
any. But to be honest, I think the stresses in business, I've kind of allowed those things just to say, you know what, it'll all just be taken care of. I think that's one of the things Evan allowed us to do, is to say, man, if we can get through this, I mean, the business is small. That's small.
I think you're right. I think, it takes some time just in general in life, I think, to get to that point where you realize the things that you worry about, like it's not doing you any good.
Right.
They're still going to be there in the morning, or in some cases they take care of themselves, and it's like you're worried for nothing.
I shared this story with my business partner a couple years ago, and I wholeheartedly believe in this. And I can't remember the exact book that I read, because I do read a little bit, but it was a book to allow us to think positive. And when a business owner is in need, you just need to think that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
You just can't say, hey, let me put this thought in my head. You have to believe in what's going to happen and think of what your end result will be.
Think and Grow Rich. It's probably the book.
it may have been it. And I can honestly tell you that I've, knock on wood, that I haven't been in a position to where, when I was in a bad place, and I've been in some bad places. I mean, we would have to have another couple hours to go over all the bad business places I've been in my mind, but it all worked out at the end, better than what I could have ever imagined. And you try to think back, okay, what was difficult in the business world or in your life at the time? And I really can't think back of how bad was.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to never hit a rock bottom, because, if you talk to somebody that hit a rock bottom, they can tell you what rock bottom feels like. And I've been fortunate enough to not be there, but I've been in some low places.
Yeah.
And it's always been easier than I would have ever dreamed to get out of the low place.
For sure.
You just let the life take you by the horns, and you just say it's going to be better.
Yeah, and I think in some cases too, it turns into an opportunity. You know, and you don't see it as that until you've gone through it and gotten there. But inevitably, that whole cliche, when one door open, closes, another opens kind of thing. Some people get so fixated on the one that's closed that they don't see the one opening. And when they do, and you go through it, you realize, wow, had this one not closed, this would have not even been possible.
Right.
And without this being possible and having occurred, and it's a little bit how I ended up here. It's like I was the Katrina year from law school.
Right.
I look back on that now, which was catastrophic when it happened. You lose a job, you lose a house. We had to move out of town because we were living in Metairie. I got a 6-month-old child. I'm still waiting for bar results, and it's like, it was very much something like, 3 years of my life I planned and worked for this, and now it's all crashing down. Right. But without that occurring, I end up working at a job at a law firm, and probably wouldn't have known any better and been happy. And I'd have been 20 years in as, a junior partner or equity partner at this point, whatever. But I wouldn't have the life I've got now.
And
the business
and
that
the
I've
freedom
got.
that you have.
Correct.
Now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you have freedom, because
you're handcuffed to it. Don't get me wrong, but it's my choices still.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your choices are going to be what makes positive growth or negative growth.
That's right.
And you're not restricted by a time clock.
Yeah.
Which is always nice for a business owner.
It also never leaves you. I'm sure you know
that is 100% true, and my wife can attest to that. And sometimes when you can leave it as a business owner, you always fall back into not allowing to leave.
Yeah, so, you feel regret.
But the hurdles are. I mean, I've been through them too. Managing the club that I did in Slidell, Hurricane Katrina. You spoke of Hurricane Katrina. We one of our facilities, the one I was initially managing, we had like 7 feet of water in that thing.
Wow.
It was completely demolished. So I just thought I lost my job completely then, just like everyone.
Yeah.
And then just things worked out to where at the time he didn't have a general manager of the entire company. He ran it, the owner ran it, and then he brought me in as doing that. So it allowed me to grow,
step up in there,
and see things. And then of course when I came here, I mean we had the struggles financially.
But Katrina allowed that to happen, so that when you came here, you knew what you needed to do.
I knew more. I didn't know enough, because he didn't. I don't think the owner of that club allowed me to learn everything, the finances that went behind it. I didn't know how expensive it was to run a health club at the time. Zero clue. I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah. I don't even want to know. It would probably make me sick.
It's crazy. But after that, I came here, and the financial struggles happened, and then we had some ownership things that changed for reasons, and that was a really sad part of my life because I lost a close friend in that, and a business partner. And then right after that, I mean, months after that, COVID came and shut us down completely. So we went from having over 10,000 members to zero. Like, we didn't charge members for months, and we had to gain all those members back.
Yeah.
And that took a little bit of time. We were pretty blessed because Hammond was different than everywhere else, I think, in the South at least.
Yeah.
They came back pretty quick. While other clubs were seeing small growth, we were seeing large growth quickly. And then right after COVID, what happened after Ida?
Yeah.
And Ida really kicked our butts at North Cypress. We had a lot of damage, and it completely wiped out all of our finances. So we had to fix everything, and we were fighting with insurance companies for 4 years. And that finally came to resolve 4 years after Ida.
It's always going to be something.
So there's always, the struggles were real, and just of recent is when we really have seen a turn, within the last 4 years or so, and to think that we just went through COVID and an Ida, and if you would have told me after those two events that were very close together, that we were going to be in a good position, I would have told you, no, we're not.
Yeah,
we're going to be out of business. And now we're in a better place than we were prior to.
You just push through it, man. You didn't quit.
And our team didn't quit. I remember having a meeting with our team when we had to shut down. It was probably the most difficult meeting I've ever had in my life. And I had a management team, and this was when they shut us down. So we're all, of course, 10 feet apart because we were following every rule in the book. And they're sitting in this big room, and I'm trying to tell them it's going to be okay. And in the back
without
of my
really
head,
knowing.
in the back of my head, it's like, we're done. These people never get paid. And I had to tell them in that meeting, I can't pay you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was going to be government help at that time. I was like, we don't have money. We can't pay you because we're not going to make any money. And it was the first meeting I had that I was trying to say everything positive, and I was using all those techniques, believing it'll happen. But in the back of my head, I didn't think it was really going to happen. And I remember that meeting when it was over, and I went in my office, they left, and I just broke down. Wow. I mean, I just cried, like ugly cried.
Yeah.
And for about an hour. And then I went home, and I was in a really bad place, mentally, depression for that I was trying to hide from my family. And then when we reopened, stuff started happening in a positive way. And then Ida came. And I kicked our butt.
And that sucks. But man, I think I've been there. I know a lot of guys that have. It's like it's almost a battle scar you sort of need. I mean, until you've been to that point of business, and it's not bottom of the barrel necessarily, but until you've been there and come out of it, like now, don't you feel like to some degree, like, man, I've been through those things.
Yeah.
There's very little that I believe I can't handle now.
It should give everyone a perspective of life that they should hold close. Is no matter how successful you think your business is, that it can just crumble in a matter of a day. And you could have the most successful business out there. It only takes one wrong turn, or one wrong post on Facebook, or one wrong
these
comment,
days, you're right.
or one wrong customer that walked through your door that can completely demolish everything you've worked for many, many years.
Yep.
And it's how you step out of those issues and how you handle them that allows you to get through them.
Yeah, coming home and counting on your family to kind of pull you through some of that too, I think is a big part, because the longer you avoid talking to them about it, it's like you almost can't feel better. You got to know that there's people like, hey, look, we're still here.
Yeah.
We still support you. We're going to be fine. We've had a lot of those times in our family too.
Yeah, good.
Well, look, I hate that I'm like up against the clock here, but we're kind of running out of time. I'm going to have you back because I feel like we're just starting to get into like some of the good stuff, but we'll do it again soon. I do have one question though. If there's anybody you know off top of mind or top of your head that you would recommend I speak to and have on the podcast.
One of the individuals in the community that I really think highly of is I'm all about youth sports and youth activity. You get these kids into sports, and it helps them grow.
Sure.
You get kids that are in areas of demographics that most of us can't understand, and you get them onto a baseball field or a football field, and allows them to learn things
and see some success on their part.
And I really think Ryan Barker out of Chapapilla. I mean, everybody knows Ryan.
I know Ryan. Yeah,
he is just a gift to him and Amber out there at Chapapilla. They are running a park that this community needs to understand how important it is.
Yeah.
And then it's nothing against Pard. I just know Chapapilla because I know Pard's doing some really great things too. But those two individuals, Ryan and Amber, they are doing some really great
good, man.
things.
I'll check him out for sure. I hadn't thought about him before, but I know him for sure. And that's a great run facility. And I hear a lot of people coming from very far off for different events, and it brings so much money to the area because they stay in hotels and eat at restaurants. And
and it's not even just about that, which that's huge. I mean, the economic boost that it gives our community is incredible, but it's that one little kid
giving those kids
that just never had, that doesn't seem like he or she has a chance, and they step on a football field and the coach just sees something in him or her, baseball field or softball field or volleyball, and they walk away thinking good.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people understand how important that is.
Well, I still run across kids that I coached.
I know, and they still call you coach, right?
Yeah, they still call me coach.
The biggest thing you ever get is like,
and look, he probably wouldn't claim it because it was one season, but one of Ryan's close friends, Pete Golden, who coaches at Ole Miss now and coached at Alabama, I coached him for 1 year in soccer, and I love telling my kids that because they don't know any better. I'm like, that guy's making a couple $1 million a year to coach the best team in the country.
LSU should try to get it, Pete.
Dude, that would be great if they got him. Gosh. Yeah. And I know Ryan's after, he'd probably be a big proponent of that too. But, well, look, I loved having you on today, man. I appreciate all the insight. It's been great. All right. Congrats on everything. Even if you don't see it as success, it looks like you really have a handle on being a great husband and father and business owner. And I'm glad to have had you on here, and good to know you, man. That's it for today's episode of No Quit. If you're still showing up, still building, still fighting, I see you. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and join me for more behind-the-scenes lessons on what it takes to keep going when most people would walk away. And remember, success isn't about getting it perfect. It's about not giving up.